Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Today on Art Shorts, I want to talk a little bit about being a parent and how that relates to art making, the art experience, specifically in the direction of my 5-year-old daughter who is rapidly turning into an artist, and I can see it more and more. It's really kind of an interesting transformation. Before I get to that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about support, as we always do on these things, and ask you for some. Now, as you know, I co-host a live talk show with my partner Terry called The Large Glass, where we bring you a new artist or an art-related theme every week, Tuesday nights at 8, on Twitch and on YouTube and on Facebook and a few other things. But we are really looking for ways to expand. Now, one thing we want to do is there's a show I want to try and pull off in July that involves inviting a bunch of people onto the show. And the first thing Terry said to me, she said, whoa, where are we going to get the budget for that? We've got to pay people to be on that show, and we don't have money for that. And I said, yeah, that's true. And I'm telling you now, I'm not going to tell you what the show is yet, but it's a brilliant idea. I mean, I'm patting myself on the back here a little bit, I know. But it could be such a brilliant show. And I thought, man, I just can't wait to get that Patreon cranking so that we've got a little nest egg that we can throw at, paying people to be on a show to bring you something interesting. So if you could, the Patreon's there. There's 3 levels of support. The two levels that are medium and high level support, they're not much. Medium level support is $5 a month. High level support is $10. Both of those get you into our Discord community, which is also great. If you don't know Discord, it's like a chat community where, Terry and I monitor that, number one. And number 2, we're going to be bringing you exclusive content. Some of it's unlockable on Patreon, and some of it's going to be live video in Discord that you can hang out and join in on. So we really want to, bring some added benefits to our members. So consider giving us some support if you would. And thank you. Thank you so much for that. All right, so on with the show. I'm currently reading a book called Hunt, Gather, Parent: What Ancient Cultures Can Teach Us About Raising Children. And that book is by Michaeline Ducleffe. As parents, at least as conscious parents that are concerned about what they're doing, and I'm going to guess that most of us are like that. I was raised in the 70s and 80s, and so it felt like, during that time, most parents really didn't give a shit about where their kids were. But that's contextual, right? That's not real. That's contextual. And that's compared to, what I mean is that's compared to now. Now, the thought of letting your 9-year-old stay home alone while you run out for groceries is unthinkable. You probably would worry that you'd be hauled in front of the court, lose your kids. But that happened to us. And I don't want to sound like that. I don't want to sound like that nostalgic old person who's like, well, when I was a kid, we used to get left home by ourselves. But I feel like most parents now, on some level or another, are trying to find ways to do things better. And this book seems like it could do that. And I'm not here to promote this book. I'm not even done reading this book. So even talking about this book on part of this podcast seems irresponsible, because I'm going to pull some information from it that may somehow change or reevaluate itself further on down the page turning. Nonetheless, it was an eye-opener and something I'm thinking about. So Ducleffe talks about how a couple hundred years ago, families raised children in pods. Lots of people living in close-knit communities in cities where your uncle, your aunt, your close friends, they all lived within a doorstep of one another. And they would filter in and out of your house during mealtime, Sundays. And the job of raising a child was not done by 2 people, or worse, like now, 1 person. It was done by the village, It takes a village to raise a child, and this is the perfect example. And the funny thing is, she goes on to talk about the Catholic Church and how the Catholic Church actually systematically destroyed that by implementing laws against incest. Because, to be honest, those communities were very sort of insular. It was important to keep them together. The value of those things was really intact. But I'm not making a case for incest here, obviously. But, at that time, when young people would plan to marry, they were often marrying inside of those communities. And given their insular nature, you would inevitably marry a fifth cousin or a third cousin. And it just went on like that. But then the Catholic Church's march towards destroying that, there's good reason for that, of course. DNA strands can't be, we can't be intermingling those between brother and sister or first cousins. But regardless, slowly, as they, made rules against sixth cousins marrying, or, even if your husband dies, you can't marry his brother, who frankly isn't really related to you, but slowly those units eroded. Okay, so now what do we have? We wind up with the nuclear family, another value, another lie, right? Because now we've got two parents. Let's just talk about America. We've got two parents in America raising kids, living in a house. Well, those two parents both have to work in order to maintain that house and the car that's needed to take the kids to the obligatory sporting events and to pay for all the training and the equipment. And what happens? Well, we're fragmented. We've got two parents that are stressed out because of their jobs, who come home, make dinner, barely get time to put those kids to bed. And the community is not there. We've sort of discarded them. All right, so then what happens? Well, now, we've got a high divorce rate and people are separating, and we wind up doing this now 1-1. Kids are going back and forth 50% of the time between both parents' houses. And what we forget in this is that the kids are becoming lonelier and lonelier. And then we wonder why they're addicted to devices, or why we have anxiety disorders, and how these things are sort of cropping up all over the place. And it really starts to make sense. So I see this, of course, in my own kids being divorced, having kids that go back and forth between both parents' houses. I myself keep a small community of people around my house. I have fantastic neighbors, and my parents, my kids' grandparents, are still in the picture. That's not necessarily the case at their other parents' house, but it is what it is. And you can see the effects of this. You can see a certain kind of reclusiveness in them. You can see, especially with the pandemic and not being able to socialize at all, not having school, the implications of this are so much greater. So how does this relate to being an artist? As an artist, I've interwoven my art-making practice with every fiber of my life. I'm not concerned about shopping. I'm not concerned about keeping up with neighbors and other people. I really make my studio practice, my making, my creativity, my thinking around those things, really almost everything I do. So when it comes to raising kids, I try to do so in a manner that is similar in its creativity. But of course, just like those parents who actually, give a shit, I also feel like I fail sometimes miserably, and I'm constantly questioned. I go to bed at night and lay there staring at the ceiling, asking myself if what I just did was really wrong, if what I did will have resonating implications down the road. I have a daughter, she's 5, who draws. And yeah, all kids draw, I get that. But I don't know how many kids out there draw like this one. It's not necessarily about some kind of quality. I'm not going to sit here and brag about the fact that my kid can render a horse or can render a dog, with incredible detail, and you'd be amazed. That's not the idea here. She draws in volume, meaning I go through reams and reams and reams of paper. I've got stacks of paper all over the house with her drawings everywhere. It's almost as if she can't physically stop the act of drawing. And I'm never, ever going to try to stop her from drawing. But drawing for her seems to be filling that void. It seems to be filling that gap. Does she use a device? Yeah, sure. She grabs her iPad and jumps onto YouTube and watches a few videos here and there, but she gets tired of that. And then she turns to pages. When she goes to the drawer that holds the paper, she doesn't take out one sheet or two sheets along with the drawer of pencils and pens and markers and crayons. She takes out a fistful of paper. Like 150 pages at a time of paper come out of that box, and she lays it on the table, and she just begins one after another, and they land on the floor and all around the table around her. The dog picks them up and chews them. It's like a sea of paper around her. Is it wasteful? No, I don't think so. I feel like telling her to concentrate on one image until it's complete is just wrong. I want her to do exactly what it is that she feels she needs to do to get through that process, because art is clearly embedded in her life. She's not doing this to play artist. She's not doing this to be a maker in the studio sense, to be the maker in the creative practice sense that I suffer through when I have to write a 200-page dossier to the institution I work for to tell them I'm a maker and convince them I'm worthy. No. This is about life. This is about filling a gap. Now, this came to a head for me about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when she very proudly and without any embarrassment proclaimed at the dinner table that she had a crush on a classmate. Now, she's totally virtual right now, and so that classmate has only appeared to her on a screen. She's never physically met this person. And he is, according to her, we asked her, well, why do you have a crush on this person? And I'm going to use his name because I think there's enough anonymity here that no one's going to be able to connect these dots in any kind of damaging way, because also there is a funny element to how this name progressed. But his name is Mason. And so we said, well, why do you like Mason? And she said, well, because he's quiet and he's cute. And I was like, well, of course. But so Mason became the crush, and we talk about Mason at dinner all the time and what Mason was doing on the camera that day in the Zoom meeting and so on and so forth. And one day, I see my daughter go upstairs, armed with all of her supplies, materials, an Amazon box, a big Amazon box, and she disappears into her room. And she emerges a little while later with a 3-foot-high cardboard cutout, not perfectly drawn in that it was a likeness of, but, carefully drawn and frankly adorably drawn her version of Mason in this cardboard cutout. He had colored clothes, and it was touching. And I said, well, what do you got there? And she said, oh, this is Flat Mason. And I said, oh, well, what a beautiful and heartbreaking, and I mean really heartbreaking way. What a heartbreaking way to see your daughter connect with the world that is currently on pause, the world that is through, this distant, bashing, destroying of a family pod, a community of people slowly whittled down over time through whatever the case may be, the Catholic Church, the nuclear family, capitalism, whatever you want to throw at this thing. You see your daughter come downstairs with a cardboard cutout of a boy that she likes, and you simultaneously realize that, number one, she's an artist that has infused this, making so deeply in her personal life that it comes out kind of sideways, but also directly as this manifestation of she wants to make that up. She wants to rebuild that. She maybe, without even knowing it, she misses that, right? She misses that community. So anyway, this is how in the age of parenting during a pandemic, I know that my daughter is, in fact, an artist. All right, well, I want to thank you for listening today. This is Art Shorts with Todd Lambrix, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.